We'd like to hear from everyone that has traveled to Tallahassee, and we will do our best to make sure that everyone gets the appropriate time. We're going to start out with a minute for each person coming up. If you would just say your name, but dispense with some of the other things because you're eating on your time. We'd like to for you to use all of your minute to tell us why you're for or against this particular piece of legislation. We'll be ending public testimony at an ample time so that the members would have a chance to debate on this bill, and we'll be voting on this bill within 2 hours of this particular time, which will be 2:15-ish. I'd ask that if the prior speaker has already said some of your points, that you go to your next points to make sure that everyone gets something new to debate. And then we will begin. So, Chairman, you, one or both, are welcome to explain your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I recognize people have a lot to say on this bill, and there are other bills, so I'll keep my opening very short. HB 1421 deals with gender clinical interventions. The bill, I would say, falls into 4 categories of what it will do. First, it will ban the surgery or drugs that are used for the purpose of mutilation and castration for children under the age of 18. Doctors who participate in that moving forward I'm sorry, I should step back. We have a strike all, and I'm starting to explain the strike all. I don't know if you want to skip this and go to the strike all.
Any objections to, there's a strike all bill, so if we could just dispense with the other for your time. Chair, would you please explain the strike all?
Yes, absolutely. And so it does what I just said. It also says, though, that doctors who engage in this practice will be committing a 3rd-degree felony in the state of Florida. Second, it says that in custody hearings, children who are at risk of being taken to do this sort of clinical gender intervention, a court can consider that in order to keep those children with the parent that does not seek to do that to their child. The third, as it relates to adults, it says that no public funds can be used for these procedures. It says that no health insurance can be used for these procedures. Should you wish to do it as an adult, you will be paying for it yourself. Third, it says you must have written consent. A doctor must get written consent and provide detailed information before an adult chooses to do this sort of thing. And fourth, it creates a new cause of action where if someone is unhappy about what has happened, they will have 30 years in the case of someone who is alive, 5 years in the case of someone who has died, in order to pursue a cause of action related to any damage that they have received as a result of this. And then finally, the bill states that birth certificates will reflect biology, and they will state what you were born as based on biology at birth. That, Mr. Chairman, is the strike all amendment.
For members' edification and people who are watching on the Florida channel, this is a strike all barcode 692881. So we're all on the same page. Any questions from members regarding this strike all amendment? Any questions from members? Questions from members? You're recognized, Representative Hunchofsky.
Thank you, Chair Clemens. Representative Fine, I had a question regarding the definition of gender clinical interventions, lines 45 through 47. It means procedures or therapies that alter internal or external physical traits. What is part of those? What exactly are in all the internal or external physical traits that fall under this?
Chair Fine.
I'm going to let the doctor.
All right. Chair Masulo, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Rep. Hunchowski, for that question. Internal changes would be changes to their physiology, such as their hormone balance. External changes would be changes to their anatomy, such as their breasts being removed or their genitals being removed or distorted in some way, shape, or form.
Follow-up, Representative Hunchowski.
Thank you, Chair Clemens. When a woman has breast cancer and has her breasts removed, is that fall under this definition?
You're recognized for an answer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If a minor young lady would have breast cancer, that would be a pathologic condition that would be treated, and it would not fall under that definition of gender reassignment.
You're welcome to follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm not a medical doctor, nor am I an attorney. So could you show me where where in the amendment it says that a person going through cancer and having their breasts removed in that case would not fall under this legislation?
Who's going to handle that one?
I will. I'm not sure how frequently 13-year-old girls get breast cancer, but if it does happen on a frequent basis, this provision only deals with minors. I don't know how frequently minors get breast cancer. Maybe it happens a lot. That's news to me. But if it does happen, the intention of the bill is not to do that. And also, the bill does say that they can be treated. All right. Nope, somebody hit the light switch. There we go.
Please proceed.
No, I will simply say if there's an issue with a 13-year-old who gets breast cancer being treated, we will make sure that the bill moving forward at the next stop addresses that issue.
Yes, follow up, Representative Hunter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So does that mean it's not explicitly not covered under this gender clinical intervention?
Thank you,
You're
Mr.
recognized.
Chairman. Yeah. I think it is covered by the definitions in this bill. However, given this pervasive problem of 13-year-old breast cancer that you're worried about, we will make sure we will take a look as this bill goes through committee that any 13-year-old who gets breast cancer will be able to have that treated moving forward.
One more. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so it's not also for anybody under the age of 18 covered in this section?
You're recognized.
This section deals with minors. So I guess, again, the pervasive problem of 17-year-olds getting breast cancer, we will also ensure that they are not going to be restricted under this bill.
You can have one more, sure.
Thank you. And just a final, it bans the insurance coverage. So would that also ban the insurance coverage for a woman or a person of any age who has breast cancer and would like to have their breasts removed as part of that treatment?
You're recognized for an answer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, that would not preclude them from having their breast removed or any other medical intervention because it would not be part of the definition of gender change.
One more.
Last one, just because we didn't really show anywhere in the bill that it wouldn't fall under that gender change, and because there's another section that mentions that it wouldn't be covered by insurance, will you be addressing those concerns in this bill?
Chair Fine,
Yeah.
Chair Masulu.
Yeah, thank you for the question. We will ensure that the concern that you specifically address, we'll go back, we'll talk to staff, we'll talk to attorneys. I don't believe it is an issue, but if it is an issue, we will make that amendment at the next committee stop.
Other
That is
questions?
certainly not the intention of the bill.
Other questions of the sponsor? Members? Other questions of the sponsor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And hopefully this question pertains to your strike all, what you're talking about. But I had the opportunity to visit our Florida State Prison about 2 months ago. And the prisoners that involved in there, they've already started hormone replacements and other types of medications and had some sex changes on the backs of the taxpayers. Would this stop this bill that you're running? Would it, because they said they're required, I think by federal and state law, that they have to continue to give these hormone drugs to them on the back, like I said, on our price.
Chairman Fine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, it would, with one exception. Anyone who is on these drugs prior to January 1st of this year would be able to be weaned off them through the end of the year. But no one new could go on and no more surgeries. Again, if the prisoner had their own money to pay for this sort of thing, we're not restricting it, but the taxpayer would not be obligated, you would not be obligated to pay for this sort of surgery.
Thank you so much.
Representative Bell, follow up.
Good.
Representative Tant for a question. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for indulging me on this question, gentlemen. In respect to the prohibition on gender clinical interventions for minors, and it says you can't have therapies that alter internal or external physical traits. My son, Jeremy, was born with Williams syndrome, and that comes with short stature. So for a male, we were on growth hormone injections from the time he was 13 months old until he was 14 in order to get him tall enough so that he would be able to at least not fall into the 4'9" and under. So I'm wanting to know whether or not, and at some point we were trying to elongate his growth period to get him a little taller. And so they put him on hormone and puberty blockers to help him have more time to grow. Will this in fact affect that? Your bill.
Chairman Fine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you look at lines 55 through 65 of the bill, that language is in there specifically for the kind of issue that you described.
Follow up, Representative Tant. Other members, go ahead. Go ahead. You can follow up. Or I can come back to you. Other members have questions? Other members have questions? Representative Skidmore for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Rep. Fine and Rep. Masulo. My question is actually in kind of the same lines as Rep. Tant's question, but in regard to birth control. So is this banning birth control for minors in this particular section because it's hormone related?
Chairman Fine.
I mean, birth control is not used to change one's gender, so no, this has nothing to do with birth control.
Follow up, Representative Skidmore.
That's the question. Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Representative Tant, want to come back to you? You have a question for the sponsor? Are there any other members that have questions of the sponsors? All right. Ranking Member Bartleman, you have a question or series. You're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. So from my understanding on the bill, this was to impact children, but there are portions of your bill that impact transgender adults, correct? Can you? I'm asking which sections are those, and was that intentional to put the adults back in here? Thank you.
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The subject of the bill is gender clinical interventions. It is not gender clinical interventions for children. And so the bill does have provisions that relate to children and adults.
Follow up, Representative Bartleman.
Thank you, Chair. What is the state's compelling interest to interfere with adults' freedom to make this sort of informed decisions for themselves?
Representative Fine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The state is not interfering with the adult's ability to make this decision.
Follow up, Representative Bartleman.
Thank you, Chair, but it is because you're limiting their access to health care. So I'm asking why you say it's not.
Okay.
You can attempt that, Dr. Masulo. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Rep. Bartleman, we're not limiting their access to health care. We're making sure that they have health care in a safe fashion. The main thing this bill is doing for adults is making sure they have informed consent for these procedures and particular drugs that they're going to be taking. They have a full understanding of the side effects and what the consequences may be. We're also providing them with the cause of action if those type of consequences and side effects are such that would bring them into a part that they would be dissatisfied or injured in some way, shape, or form with that treatment. The fact that we are not allowing insurance to pay for these type procedures is because we feel that they should be included as a cosmetic type procedure and not necessarily a procedure that would improve their health.
Follow up, Representative Bartleman.
Thank you, Chair. I guess for a lot of these individuals, it impacts their mental health. And we know that LGBTQ have the highest suicide rates in the nation. So I don't look at it as cosmetic. So when it's impacting mental health, I'm asking, do you think if it's going to impact their mental health and a doctor says this is what we should be doing, a mental health doctor is still going to prohibit the insurance from covering this?
Representative Fine, I
Thank
think
you.
there was a question at the end about.
I did, sorry, sir.
Again, nothing in this bill will prevent an adult, if they so choose, and pay for it to get these surgeries if they so desire.
Ranking Member, any more? Come on, you. Yep, okay. You're recognized. Representative Skidmore for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the section of the birth certificates, I know that I was born Kellyanne Politano, then I was Kellyanne Palmer, then I, got married and I'm Kellyanne Skidmore. Then I found out that I have a different biological father and I'm Kelly Hames. So I know birth certificates can be changed. And so what is the specific point if a person is transgender? Why would you prohibit them from having the reflection of that change, just like the change in my name? That why would they not be able to change their birth certificate?
Chairman Fine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your name can be changed, your biology cannot.
Follow-up, Representative Skidmore.
Thank you. Well, I think doctors would disagree with you. That's the whole point of transgender surgery, to reflect exactly who you are and who you feel you are, but we're not born that way. So you can change your biology. That is what is happening. You are reflecting the biology that you feel is your true biology. So your birth certificate would reflect that.
Is there a question in there, Representative Skidmore?
I'm
Yes.
happy to answer.
Okay.
There are no doctors that I'm aware of that believe you can change your biology. There are some doctors that have divorced biology from gender. They say they are different. I'm not aware of doctors who believe that you can change your X and your Y chromosomes, which determine your biology. I will also note that it is unsettled whether you actually, not all doctors have the perspective that you are sharing, and we in this bill are saying you will be reflected as your biology, which is not changeable. You cannot change your chromosomes.
Representative Skidmore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to move to a different section. There was a bill, House Bill 241, the Parents' Bill of Rights, that held it's a fundamental right of parents to direct the upbringing, education, and care of their minor children. So how is, a parent deciding that they believe, they are supporting their child in their decision to have their bodies reflect who they believe themselves to be, not a parental right?
Representative Fine.
Thank you. There is no parental right to child abuse. And children cannot consent to this because they are of an age where they cannot make these decisions. And so given that, what we're focused on in this bill are procedures that have irrevocable changes. You will note that the bill does not prevent psychological treatment. It does not prevent someone who wishes to dress as different than their biology, because those are things that you can then go back and say, well, I changed my mind. But there are guardrails on what parents can do with their children. It's the entire reason we have DCF. So not to say this relates to that, but there are limits on what parents can do in the upbringing of their children.
Representative Skidmore.
Thank you, Mr.
You're
Chair.
recognized.
Where is it defined anywhere that surgical procedures are child abuse?
Representative Fine, you're recognized.
It is not, but that is my opinion, and that is what is driving the bill. And so we don't have to define it. We're simply saying in this bill, you won't be able to do it. You're asking what my motivation is in answering your question, and I've shared that.
One moment. Further answering of Representative Skidmore's question? Okay. You have a follow-up, Representative Skidmore?
Just a confirmation, Mr. Chair, that that's just your opinion.
I'll answer that.
Representative Masulo. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When you look at child abuse, we don't have a list of all the things that would qualify for child abuse. If you chopped your son's arm off, that would be considered child abuse. Any reasonable person would recognize that. But I don't know that there's any place where it says chopping your son's arm off would be child abuse. We consider these procedures child abuse, and we'd like to think that there is a magnitude of evidence to show those facts. And so that's why this bill is addressing it in such a fashion as it is.
Representative Skidmore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not an attorney either, as Rep. Honchowski said, but how do you suggest that it's a fact
You're
if you just
recognized.
said it was your opinion?
You're recognized. Neither one of you gentlemen are attorneys, but you're welcome to give your
They
opinion.
often think I am. So, no, I'm, that's our opinion. We're sharing our rationale. When we all present bills in this body, our bills are informed by our opinions. This is our opinion. We'll see if it's the opinion of this committee. We'll see if it's the opinion of this legislature. But you've asked part of the reason. There are many other reasons beyond that, including the science, which no one's asked about. But it is our view that doing this to children is child abuse. That's one of the reasons why this bill is written the way that it is.
Representative Honchowski for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I always say to people, like, our first job here is to do no harm, and then our second job is to solve problems. So what problem is this legislation solving?
Representative Fine.
Thank you. We are trying to do no harm. As science is continuing to show, as we're seeing in Western European countries, these procedures are experimental, particularly as they are being done on children. There's also evidence that they have catastrophic side effects as they move down the road. We do not believe our children should be used as guinea pigs, and that is why we're making this decision. The purpose of this bill is to do no harm.
Representative Honchowski for a follow-up.
Thank you, Chair. Did the Board of Medicine already ban these procedures for minors?
Representative Fine for an answer.
Thank you. They did, but much as we saw when we dealt with COVID regulations and, for example, school boards who didn't think they had to follow executive orders, it's one thing for it to be an executive order or a decision of the Board of Medicine. It's another thing for it to be a statute in the state of Florida.
Follow-up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So you think that even though the Board of Medicine said it, that we need legislation that might also incorporate unintended consequences such as women with breast cancer, you still feel this legislation is necessary despite that decision?
Representative Fine, and I thought you solved the breast cancer question earlier.
But I would like to answer that question. Number one, I don't know, the full committee had a presentation on this issue. We had the chairman of the Board of Medicine come. He said he thought this bill would be helpful. That's number one. And number two, what I'm worried about is the unintended consequences of experimental surgeries like this on children.
Another follow-up? Sure. All right. Ranking Member Barterman, you have another series of questions. You're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. So just now, you shared with us that this was about preventing what you think is child abuse, and that it needed to be cemented in to law because the Board of Education wants an extra step. However, the Board of Medicine, I apologize. However, your bill goes beyond children. You have adults, you're impacting their care. It's not child abuse for an adult to make a decision about their lives and their medical procedures. So why are you taking it this additional step if the impetus of your bill is about children?
Representative Fine.
I think we're mixing different issues here. Yes, this bill goes beyond what the Board of Medicine does, and that's because in the judgment of the sponsors, this is what the bill should do. The Board of Medicine, I should be clear, they did not ask us to do this, but we did ask the question when the chairman of the Board of Medicine testified before the committee, did he think legislation related to what they did would be helpful, and they said yes. We did not ask the Board of Medicine about some of these other issues. For example, issues relating to birth certificates or health insurance would not be within their purview anyway.
Follow-up. I don't know that he answered the last question.
Yeah, he
you had.
didn't.
No,
You wanna
refresh
rephrase
that.
it?
Yeah, just refresh it because he was on the.
So if the impetus is child abuse and children can't make their decisions, do no harm, why are, in the free state of Florida, can't adults make decisions? You're prohibiting them access to their medical coverage. You're prohibiting them access to their, to purchasing any plans. Why are you taking it the next level if they should be free to make those decisions themselves? And they're adults. So you're arguing children, but at the same time, you've now slipped in here that, by the way, we're going to impact all adults from making any medical decisions about themselves when it comes to
Chairman
this.
Fine. for an
Thank you.
answer.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I reject the presumption that we've slipped anything in. The bill is very clear as to what it does. We are not restricting an adult's decision to make whatever decision that they want. We are also protecting people's rights to not have to pay for things that we believe are elective.
Other members have questions. Representative Skidmore, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Fine, do you know that knee replacements are elective surgery? Considered elective.
Look, Chair Masulo, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, knee replacements are elective surgery because of the medical condition that precipitates the fact that you need your knee replaced. So they're elective only to the point where you're deciding the time that they'll be done. But most of the time, people that have knee replacement, they have a knee replacement because their knee needs replaced. It's worn out, there's cartilage damage, there could be bone damage. There's some medical condition that actually determines the fact that you need your knee replaced. What these procedures are, we believe, aren't necessary. We believe these individuals have issues more that are psychologically driven that need therapy, but the therapy doesn't have to have interventions that have irreversible side effects.
Representative Skidmore, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
I apologize.
And getting back to Rep. Bartleman's question also, the parts of this bill does not restrict adults at all. As I mentioned earlier, it empowers them with more informed consent. The only thing it does is it limits insurance companies from paying for these procedures, which we believe are more cosmetic oriented.
Representative Skidmore for a follow-up, and then we'll go to Representative Hunchowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have rheumatoid arthritis. I've had it most of my life since I was a small child. I needed a knee replacement. It was elective surgery. My insurance company at the time covered that elective surgery, but it was still elective. I chose to do it. I didn't have to do it. I could have done something else, and that's what made it elective. How are you suggesting that an adult person, understanding that you've got a problem with the kids, an adult person making a decision to have a surgery that they feel is in their best healthcare interests, just like I did, it is, are you telling us that it is your opinion that they should not be entitled to that elective surgery?
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Rep. Skidmore, we're not mixing these types of elective surgeries. The elective surgery that you elected to do was because of your health condition. If you would have elected to enlarge your legs to make you taller, that would be an elective surgery that I wouldn't want insurance companies to pay for because you were doing that more for cosmetic reasons. And that is the elective type procedures that Representative Fine and myself would like to have not covered through insurance.
One more. There's a philosophical difference here. So one more question, and we'll go to Representative Hunchowski.
Thank you. So to be clear, transgender surgery is cosmetic, in your opinion?
You're recognized.
My belief is that surgery is intended to attempt to defy your biology is cosmetic, yes.
Representative Hunchowski for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to go back to the coverage of the health insurance coverage regarding, it says on lines 151 for 153, and it has nothing to do with youth or not youth. Coverage of certain treatment health insurance policy may not provide coverage for gender clinical interventions as defined in the previous section. So will that mean that penile implants will also no longer qualify to be covered by health insurance under this bill?
Representative Fine.
Yeah, Chair Masulo and I have never had to deal with that in our own lives, so I don't know that health insurance would cover that right now, but it's something that we're certainly willing to look into.
Follow up.
That very well
Representative Hunchowski.
might be
All right, other members have questions? And I would remind everyone, we're on barcode 692881. This is the strike all amendment. Are there any other member questions? One more question. Ranking member has one more question. You're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I believe that mental health, physical health, practitioners that I go to look at the whole patient. It is, not only have you restricted their access to their health insurance or purchasing a plan, this bill also limits their ability to get telehealth. Why is that in here? If you're saying that this is about kids, this is about people, and I am different because I think you look at the whole patient, not just the physical, but the mental. Why limit telehealth then? Why take it all the way?
Representative Fine.
Sure. We believe, thank you, Mr. Chairman, we believe given the seriousness of the procedure, it should be done with the doctor in person. Again, that is our belief.
Representative Tant for a question. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the things, I'm not a parent of a child who has struggled with this, but I cannot imagine what it would be like to have a child in your family who couldn't stand their own bodies to the point that their mental health was affected and suicide be on the brink. In the bill, we are restricting parental rights for a child, for a parent to be able to make a decision to pursue the best care, best mental and physical health options for their child. Why are we doing that? What is the concern you have with that? And why do we feel like we need to do this?
Representative Fine.
Thank you. It's a great question. Thank you for the question. I think of the story of Chloe Cole, whose parents were told when she was 13 years old they could either have a dead daughter or a live boy. So with that sort of threat being made by doctors, they went and they authorized puberty blockers, and then at the age of 16, her breasts were removed. As she testified before our committee, she very quickly came to regret that. It has had life-altering effects on her life. I read a story just yesterday about a girl also who had the same exact statements made to her parents. You can have a live boy or a dead daughter. They removed her breasts when she was 13 years old. She now regrets it and she is sued. That is the kind of mutilation that this bill seeks to stop.
Follow up, Representative Tant.
Thank you. How many families, what is your estimate of how many people are facing this right now that we're trying to cure?
Representative Fine, if you can have an answer or share with us.
Thank you. I'm not entirely sure what the question is, but if the question relates to how frequently is this happening, it's interesting. Many of the practitioners who are so proud of this, what they refer to erroneously as gender-affirming care, they're very proud of it. Yet when it comes to sort of providing information about the numbers, all of a sudden they're not all that happy to do it. But we do have one example, just to give you a sense. There is one doctor in Miami Beach, or Miami, I don't know where in Miami, who I invited to testify before my committee. She markets her services to girls on TikTok under the, I'll call trade name, Dr. Titus Deletus. That is her name, not mine. We invited her to come and explain to our committee why this is so great. She's willing to talk about why it's so great on TikTok to kids. Why not come and talk to adults in the legislature? She declined that invitation, but she alone did 13 of these breast removals on children last year in Florida. One doctor.
Follow up, Representative Tant. No more? Yes? Representative Hunchowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to follow along those lines, do you know of any studies that could tell you what the percentage of regret is that you mentioned?
Representative Fine, or Dr. Masulo, you're recognized. Either.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. In the most recent studies, it shows almost 80% of these children that do not have any intervention change their minds by the time they get to adulthood. That's an important fact to realize. Also, some of the more recent studies from the countries that had these procedures initiated even before the United States have shown marked side effects with bone development, particularly in men, also we're seeing neural problems with increased pressure in the brain, which leads to a condition called pseudotumor cerebri. So there are irreversible factors that were not taken into consideration when these procedures and these therapies were initially initiated. There's studies in Sweden that we could send you that shows the movement now is to concentrate more on affirming psychological care and not doing these surgical and medical interventions worldwide, particularly in Europe, where they started previously.
Representative
I would
Fine.
just add, if it's okay, I would just add, so this movement, if you want to call it that, really sort of got moving in Europe under something called the Dutch Protocol. It sort of took off. You would argue, I think those who disagree with this bill, they were ahead of the curve with the United States. They are now moving backwards. Finland is saying, nope, we're going back. This was not good. Sweden is saying, nope, this isn't good. We're going backward. The UK just closed their largest facility that dealt with this for many of the same issues because they've said that the research is not good and much of what is out there, there's no longitudinal study, there's no long-term studies. Many of the studies that have been relied upon have not been constructed accurately. What you have is you have an ideology that is pushing medical treatments on children. Again, we're seeing the countries that were doing this years ago, they're now going, okay, this was a mistake, we're going to pull it back. We're going to, in Florida, make sure we never get to the place that those countries are at now.
Representative Hunchofsky for another one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the only reason I was asking it, and I would love to, if you could send me a link to the study that you were citing, I'd appreciate it, because the study that I saw was a review of 27 studies involving almost 8,000 teens and adults who had had transgender surveys, mostly in Europe, the US, and Canada, and 1% on average expressed regret, which is kind of in conflict with the study that you're referring to. Would you be able to provide more information on that study?
Representative Masulo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In that study was determined by several investigators to have a lot of selection bias, and that was a very short-term study. Some of the more recent studies that are longer term are showing those individuals do have more regret, and when you compare the amount of depression and suicidal ideations with those individuals, they're actually showing greater than the individuals that had no care. And yes, we'll be able to send those all to you.
Representative
Sure, our
Barton.
aides are listening right
For a
now.
question.
Thank you, Chair. Once again, you're citing studies in Europe that have to do with children. And I want to point out that there are studies for adults that you are over 18. As Representative Hunchofsky spoke of, you can get a penile implant if you're over 18. You can get a knee replacement. You talked about Chloe. I can give you a list of names. Ben, Jen, tons of them, where people are very happy. So my question is,
Questions.
thank you, sir. I'm going to do it. So my question is, everything you're saying, I get you're protecting children, you think it's child abuse. Why are you stopping adults from using insurance?
Representative Bartman, you've asked that
Sorry.
question twice. And we do want to hear what you have to say. Save that for debate because we're going to have plenty of time for all the members to debate. Are there other questions? Questions of the sponsors? Questions of the sponsors? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we are on the strike all amendment currently, and it is a strike all amendment barcode 692881. We have some other amendments. The first amendment is barcode 3, amendment to the amendment 333093 and barcode 047519. Both of those amendments have been withdrawn. We do have a third amendment to the amendment, barcode 853805 by Representative Skidmore. And Representative Skidmore, you're recognized to explain your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the strike all, there's new language in regard to those who are currently receiving care, and it extends that care only until December 2023. My amendment deletes that line and allows those who are currently under care since January of 2023 to continue being able to receive their care.
You're recognized for an answer, gentlemen.
I think it was, she
Oh.
presented her amendment.
She's not asking that question?
No, she has presented.
Representative Skidmore, having explained her amendment to the amendment, are there any questions by the members to Representative Skidmore? Yes, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative, is this a friendly amendment?
I
Representative
don't
Fine?
think it's for me to say.
Representative Fine.
No, it is not obviously a friendly member, but the definition for the people here of friendly amendment is an amendment we would like to see added to the bill. It is not. The reason we have put in the weaning off period to the end of the year is to account for the fact that we recognize that, you know, just sort of going boom, cold turkey with a lot of things isn't a good decision, but we do not support this amendment.
Any questions of Representative Skidmore on her amendment to the amendment? Any Representative Skidmore questions? Any public testimony on the amendment to the amendment? Will Larkins, you would like to speak? Please come up. You have 1 minute. Come on up. Clock's ticking, sir. Ma'am, welcome.
Year-old senior. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Hi,
you
my
can
name
start over. I'll start your clock all over.
Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Will Larkins. I'm an 18-year-old senior at Winter Park High School and the co-founder and president of my school's Queer Student Union. I encounter kids every day under the age of 18 who have been on gender-affirming healthcare for a lot of their lives. And that healthcare has saved their lives. By taking that away and by forcing them to detransition, something that this amendment would take out of the bill, you will kill them. I am telling you right now, look me in the eyes and know that you will kill them if you pass this bill and if you don't pass this amendment. When you're trans, you rely on being able to be who you are. When you're born in the wrong body, it is hell. That is how every trans person I know has described it. There's really no reason to do this. There's really no reason to not let people change their gender on their birth certificate and live their lives as who they are. I'm going to tell you once again, as someone who encounters transgender minors on a day-to-day basis, you will kill them if you force them to detransition.
Thank you for being here today.
Have a beautiful day, y'all.
Is there any other public testimony on the amendment to the amendment? All right, we'll open the floor up. You have testimony on the amendment to the amendment. All right, please come forward and hand the sergeant your speaking card, please. You're recognized. Thank you. No, you're recognized. Yep.
Can we get a clarification before the clock starts ticking, please?
Clarification on what? This is amendment to
On
the
what-
amendment?
Yes, because
This is Representative Skidmore's amendment to the strike all.
that's what I
Yep.
was trying to
Yes.
get to.
Perfect. And you'd like to speak to this amendment?
The amendment I asked to speak to was the one that was the strike all amendment, which now.
It's already passed.
And that's why I'm asking
Yes.
for clarification. The strike all now becomes,
You'll still have a chance.
please, sir.
You'll still have a
Please,
chance.
sir.
Yes, sir.
But
Just let this one go.
for, yes, and that's what I'm trying to do, but for the rest of us, we
Okay,
can
no, no.
understand in
Time out.
layman's term. Yes.
You haven't lost ability to speak.
Right.
We'll take care of Representative Skidmore's amendment, and then you'll have a public testimony opportunity at a later time for what's on the floor. Okay? You haven't lost anything. Okay.
I
We'll call you back up. You'll be the first one.
I
Any-
just want, and I'm not trying to drag this out, but I think other people too would like to know, so we're not confused. I think the last individual was confused on what they were speaking to, okay? And I-
We're not confused now, and I will
am.
announce, okay.
Okay,
If
and
you'd
I'm
have
a
a seat,
citizen, I'll just
I'll
ask.
call you when it's your turn.
Thank you,
And I
sir.
promise you, you'll have full time. Are there any members that would like to ask Representative Skidmore questions on her amendment? to the amendment? All right, no, we passed that. So how about debate? Anybody like to throw in some debate on Representative Skidmore's amendment to the amendment? Ranking Member Bartleman, you're recognized for debate on the amendment to the amendment.
I would just like to comment that we know that this bill is going to pass today. It's going to pass in the House. However, there are individuals out there who have been receiving care for 3 or 4 years. They have been living their lives a certain way, living their lives as to who they are. To force them now, to force them to stop taking it. I know you said, well, they have to December to get off. I am telling you, this will do more harm than good. You're going to prevent anyone from this date forward, from the signature of this bill, from getting care. They're not going to be able to get the hormones. They're not going to be able to have the surgery. But if you are currently in the middle of this treatment, to take it away is just, I can't imagine doing that to someone. And even the Board of Health, who is appointed by the governor, grandfathered these individuals in. We have to have a sense of humanity. You can't abruptly take away care from everybody who's in it, especially 3 or 4 years if they started the puberty blockers at 11. So I am asking everyone, you know that this bill is going to pass, but to abruptly stop the care of people who have been living their lives 3 or 4 years is just horrific and will impact them. And I have to tell you, I've spoken to parents, and it is just as difficult for the parents to know. I am friends with parents whose children have transitioned. And it is very hard because there was a name and there was a child born, but they know they have the right to make the best decision. If you heard Jazz Jennings' mother speak, that she knew that if she didn't make the decision she needed to for her daughter, that her daughter would not be here today. So these are people who have already had this right. You're abruptly taking it away. You're going against what the Board of Medicine put in place. You're taking it even a step further. So I am just asking you to please grandfather these people in, please.
Further debate. Further debate on Representative Skidmore's amendment to the amendment. We're talking about barcode 853805. So there's no further debate. Representative Skidmore, you're welcome to close on barcode 853805.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was a member of the committee that heard the panel discussion. And while compelling, it wasn't testimony. The panel discussion by one panel member was one detransitioned person. One. What this bill will do is force every person who is currently receiving care to detransition, to become someone they are not, someone that they do not see themselves as being for the rest of their life. They have made this decision with their parents, with their doctor, to become who they believe themselves to be. And they should be allowed, despite your cruelty, to take this opportunity away from any person in the future. Those children should be allowed to continue their care. This amendment simply lets those folks who have been receiving care since the beginning of this year to become who they believe themselves to be, with the support and resources of their families to help them through it. The decisions, the parental rights, the freedom, the things that we pretend to hold dear in this legislature, I want want those people, those children, and those families to be able to hold them dear too. This amendment allows people who are currently in treatment to continue their treatment, and that's all it does. And I would urge and appreciate your support.
Representative Skidmore, having closed on her amendment to the amendment, all those in favor of said amendment, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. No. By your vote, that show the amendment does not pass. We are back on the main amendment, and we have public testimony on the main amendment. Now, everybody follow me. This is the main strike all amendment that was not amended. Wendell, you're here representing yourself. I promised you, Wendell, that you'd have your chance. Please come up. Share with us your testimony. Keep it brief. I've got one here for you for this one. Welcome.
Representatives, Wendell Beatty, Sergeant, retired, 28 years, combat veteran. You know, gender dysphoria is real, and WPATH is standards of care, is a treatment plan for people like me that have transgender gender dysphoria. You know, we talk about not allowing youth to take care of themselves. I found out when I was 8, okay? When I was 10, my mom found out. She didn't say a thing. My dad didn't say a thing. I had to figure it out on my own, okay? Luckily, there were distilleries and breweries around to help me stay alive until the point where I got to speak to a therapist. You know, the Florida Constitution would be a lot simpler to amend by the people if we would go to Article 1, Section 2, Basic Rights, and just say everything's okay for everybody except transgenders. I oppose this bill, and I hope y'all will too.
Any other public testimony on the strike all amendment? Any other public testimony? Any other members of the public that would like to testify on the strike all amendment? Okay, seeing none. Members, debate on the strike all. Debate on the strike all. Seeing no debate on the strike all. Representative Fine or Representative Masulo, you're welcome to close on your strike all.
We'll waive close and we'll speak when we close on the bill.
Having waived closed on the strike all, Sabrina, please call the roll of the members.
Representatives Abbott,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Bartleman,
No.
Bell,
Yes.
Black,
Yes.
Barrero,
Yes.
Cheney, Franklin,
No.
Kamchowski,
No.
Persons Mullica,
Yes.
Rudman,
Yes.
Salzman,
Yes.
Skidmore,
No.
Snyder,
Yes.
Tant,
No.
Tant,
No.
Trabuzzi,
Yes.
Chair Clemens,
Yes.
12 yeas and 5 nays.
Members, by your vote, the strike all amendment passes. Now we will have public testimony on the bill. Okay, public testimony on the bill, and we have quite a lot of members of the public that would like to speak on this bill. David Poole, you're recognized. We're going to keep them to about 60 seconds. After that, we would ask Jonathan Weber to come up. David Poole, are you here? David Poole, going once. Okay, waves in opposition. Jonathan Weber, and on deck is Renee. Mr. Weber, welcome. Keep it
Thank
to
you.
about a minute.
Appreciate it. Thank you. My name's Jonathan Weber. I represent the SPLC Action Fund. I do urge you to vote no on this healthcare ban. There is no credible evidence to dispute the overall safety and efficacy of medical care for transgender youth. Conversely, leading medical organizations like the American Academy of Pediatrics, American Psychological Association, the American Medical Association, the Endocrine Society, and dozens of other organizations representing thousands of doctors and medical professionals support gender-affirming care. This care saves lives by reducing the mental and physical consequences of untreated gender dysphoria. This purposeful prohibition of a family's access to widely accepted and proven effective medical treatment is dangerous. Moreover, charging doctors with a third-degree felony for doing what they are trained and recommended to do to save lives is a massive overreach of state government. Make no mistake, this healthcare ban will harm young people, question the custody of parents desperate for care for their child, expand government into the private lives of medical citizens. Please vote no. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Renee, you're up, and Olivia, you're on deck. You're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Look, I realize you do not care about transgender people, so I'm not going to sit here and talk about my personal story, because many of you have just demonstrated time and time again you don't care about empathy. So let's talk facts for a second. There's a lot of misinformation that was just spewed. I'm a psychologist, a master's degree, and a PhD candidate, and I can tell you unequivocally that less than 1% of trans people detransition. The majority of them feel great when they do, and it saves their lives. Let's talk about 2 points on why this is unconstitutional. I want to bring your attention to Section 1, lines 7 through 15, and Sections 4, line 41 through 65. Section 1 violates the full faith and credit clause of the U.S. Constitution, Article 4, Section 1, which requires each state to recognize the public acts records and judicial proceedings of every other state. By allowing a court in one state to disregard a custody determination in another state, this provision is unconstitutional. Section 4 prohibits certain, I quote, gender clinical interventions for minors and imposes restrictions on physicians who perform such interventions. This is unconstitutional because it restricts the fundamental right to privacy and bodily autonomy.
Let's bring it in for a landing, please.
Yes, sir. As recognized by the Planned Parenthood versus Casey, 1992, the Supreme Court has also recognized
time
individuals
is
have a
concluded
right
now.
to make decisions about their bodies.
Olivia, you're next. Thank you for being here. Olivia, Michael Barrett, you're after Olivia. If you would stand up on the side and get ready to come up, if you would, please, Michael. Olivia, welcome.
Hi, my name is Olivia Solomon. I'm here as an ally and a proud big sister to an incredible gender nonconforming boy. I'm also here because no one's allowed to be mean to my brother but me. And you are all being bullies if you pass this bill. You're being children's first bullies, and you are not allowing them to get treatment that is life-saving. You know this. If you vote against this, you're voting against these kids' lives. And so the Trevor Project estimates that at least one LGBTQ youth between the ages of 13 and 24 attempts suicide every 45 seconds in the US. I would like to take the rest of my time for you to think about that. Life that will be considered to be taken in this time.
Thank you. Michael, you're next with Max on deck. Michael, representing the Florida Conference of Catholic Bishops.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. Michael Baer with the Florida Conference of Catholic Bishops. We deeply sympathize with anyone who experiences gender dysphoria and recognize that it can be intensely difficult. Therefore, it is important to recognize that so-called gender-affirming protocols lack long-term evidence of their efficacy and result in irreversible physical damage to the patient. Furthermore, there is significant evidence that avoiding chemical or surgical interventions will result in desistance in favor of biological sex for most minors by the time they go through puberty. Finally, no medical intervention can truly realign a person's sex, which is an immutable characteristic of each person. Medical care should promote the flourishing of the human person. Gender-affirming protocols fail to do this because they fail to alleviate the problem they seek to solve, and because they cause damage to the patient's body. Therefore, these protocols should be prohibited. Thank you, Representative Fine, for bringing this good bill. Please vote yes on HB 1421. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Max. Max, you're up, and Sierra, please, you're on deck. Welcome, Max.
Good afternoon. My name is Max Fenning, and I'm the founder and president of PRISM, a youth-led LGBT nonprofit in South Florida. I'm sure this tireless work to strip people of their rights every chance you get is so exhausting. Trust me, it is for us too. So I hope that we wake you up today. I hope you can look up from your phones when hundreds of people come up to you crying, begging to be seen as human beings, to be heard. I hope you look them in their teary, puffy, beet red eyes when you tell them that you know better about their lives than they do. When you pretend the science is on your side, when you know full well it is anything but, when you pretend that your hands are tied behind your back by the GOP's zip ties and duct tape, while you drown in 2 feet of water and pretend to be lost at sea so you can look good in front of your melting wax figure of a governor that will ride a ghost ship circling the White House and never be permitted to dock at its port. I hope you have the audacity. You give us 1 minute to beg for mercy. If you're going to be a murderer, then acts like it.
Thank
And
you for
if
being
you
here.
won't, then I
Sierra,
urge you
you're
to vote
next,
no.
please.
Thank you
Come
for
on
your
up.
time.
And Will, you're on deck, and Kevin, you're after Will.
So I'm just gonna jump right in. When my brother was 7, we found out that he had a genetic disorder called NF1, which was causing a tumor to push on the puberty gland in his brain, causing him to go through puberty and put his life at risk at 7 years old. Luckily, my parents were able to utilize hormone blockers, a therapy that this bill would ban, to save my brother's life. What makes my brother's case any more medically life-saving and helpful than hormone care for trans youth? Because unlike the opinion-based language in this bill suggests gender-affirming care is medically necessary and life-saving as well. See, I actually mean it when I say I believe in parental rights, and like many other parents, I will do anything I can to protect my child and the children in my community. So I'll tell you right now that if y'all dare to come to my home or to the homes of my neighbors to kidnap our children for utilizing the same treatment my brother got, I'll need you to remember that Florida has a stand your ground law for a reason.
Thank you for being here. Welcome back.
Hi, thank you for having me back. My name is Will Larkins. I'm an 18-year-old senior at Winter Park High School. This is complete government overreach. I want to remind y'all that we have other problems. My English teacher is homeless and works 2 jobs because we don't allocate enough money to the school system. And once again, I'm letting you guys know right now, I hope you can sleep well knowing that you are killing kids. That bypassing this law, which I know you will, because you don't care what your constituents have to say, you are killing trans kids. And you're destroying the lives of their families. I have nothing else to say but that. Think about it. Every 45 seconds, like Olivia said.
Thank you for being here, Will. Kevin, you're next, and Joe Saunders from Equality, Florida. You're next. Kevin. And Joe, can you queue up, please? Kevin? All right, if Kevin's not here, we'll give you Kevin's time. Come on up. Welcome, Joe. After Joe would be John Harris.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. My name is Joe Saunders. I'm the Senior Political Director for Equality Florida, also a former member, served in the House from a while ago.
Welcome back.
You know, there's clearly something happening in conservative movements in America today. As of today, there are over 400 bills introduced in conservative legislatures that work to restrict the rights and freedoms of LGBTQ Americans. Most of them are centered on transgender Americans. But with this strike all today, I'm here to make sure that you know and that the public knows that this legislation is the most extreme attack on transgender Americans that is filed in a legislature today. Government-forced detransitions of young people, the sweeping way in which it bans private insurers, as we've heard, from offering healthcare to people who need it. The way that it requires local governments to ban healthcare and also to ban contractors of local governments from providing healthcare. Think about how many providers, how many businesses are in contracts with the cities and counties that you represent in your districts. This is sweeping, it is extreme, and we need adults in the room to say, enough is enough. This cannot be who the state of Florida is. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Joe. John Harris, followed by Paul. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. John Harris Maurer, the Public Policy Director for Equality Florida. HB 1421 deeply infringes on parental rights and medical freedom, and it is a direct attack on the existence of transgender Floridians, both minors and adults. This bill overrides parents' rights to seek health care for their children, potentially life-saving health care accessed with the guidance of medical professionals. Leading national health organizations like the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Psychological Association, and the American Medical Association support gender-affirming care for transgender children. But this is state-forced detransition. In a matter of months, parents whose kids have been successfully in care, who are thriving in care, perhaps for years, will be forced to terminate that care. Its provisions also enable courts to change custody agreements against a supportive parent, depriving that parent of custody, treating them like a child abuser, simply for seeking care for their child who is struggling. This is also wildly overbroad. As previously discussed, the ban on gender clinical interventions, in fact, is in no way tied to gender dysphoria or addressing gender transition. So when the bill addresses any, quote, any other surgical procedures that alter primary or secondary sexual characteristics, that includes breast augmentations and vasectomies.
Please wrap it up, please.
So those would no longer be covered by insurance. When it addresses puberty blockers, those would no longer be available to any minors, and again, not covered by insurance. Equality Florida fundamentally opposes this bill and asks you to do the same.
Dr. Paul Ahrens, you're recognized. Letitia Harmon, you're up next. Welcome, Dr. Ahrens.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members. My name is Paul Ahrens. I have a 40-year career as a physician, 25 of which were with Florida Public Health. I'm a constituent of Representative Franklin. Despite compelling testimony from individuals and medical professionals about the life-affirming, life-saving benefits of gender dysphoria care, the result of hearings so far has been denial of Medicaid reimbursement for essential gender dysphoria services, and rules by medical boards prohibiting standard and vital care. Why won't the powers that be listen to the people? I think it's time to re-examine motivation. In this and other states, officials have apparently decided this is an easy way to harvest votes, to maintain a supermajority against a beleaguered, powerless minority. In my book, that's called bullying. This is a shameful bill based on fringe theories and personal opinions, rife with cruelty and bullying. The good news is that you can regain the moral high ground and stop this here and now today. Please, please vote down this awful bill.
Thank you for being here. Letitia, you're up, and Wendell Birdie, you're on deck, please. Welcome.
Letitia Harmon, I'm the Policy and Research Director for Florida Rising. I'm here in opposition to this bill because LGBTQ youth are 4 times more likely to attempt suicide than their peers. Attacking our trans youth, especially youth of color, is endangering lives. Providing gender-affirming care is literally saving lives. 1 in 4 of transgender youth of color attempted suicide in the past year. These are children that we're talking about here. And if you had the opportunity to save a child's life by providing the necessary health care, by providing them the therapy that they need, these are children who would rather commit suicide than go through life without receiving the kind of affirming care that this legislation bans. And if you could save a child's life, why would you not do that? Why would you not say, we see you, we honor you, we see that you need to speak to someone to figure this out, and there are ways to help you grow and become fully who you are. And it may very well change your entire perspective on life, so much so that you want to continue living. You could save a child's life by doing that. And we urge you to do that, to stand with our youth, to say, we see you, we honor your dignity, we will provide you with health care, we will vote no on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Wendell, one more bite at the apple. Welcome back.
Chair.
Still Wendell Beatty, still gender dysphoric, and still a veteran. But WPATH works, so I guess good things are worth repeating. Okay, it's a standard of care for transgender people, recognized medical professionals around the world. Please heed it. It saves lives. This bill won't. It'll be FUBAR upon delivery or vote into law, okay? And Florida is a free state, and free states don't create refugees, which is another thing this bill is starting to create. Please oppose it. Please vote no.
Thank you again for being here, Wendell, and thank you for your service. Ryan Kennedy, you're up, and Patty Sullivan, you're after Ryan. Welcome, and please keep it to about a minute, please.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Ryan Kennedy with the Florida Citizens Alliance. We raise in strong support of this bill today, and we thank the sponsor for bringing it forward. We believe that protecting children is a strong priority. It should be for any government, any state at the federal level. Protecting children should be at the forefront. And this is what this does, because these treatments are experimental. They are dangerous. They have a lot of long-term side effects, as we have seen. And even in Europe, these gender clinics are closing down that have done these procedures because they see the side effects that it's causing in their children. Why would we do the same in Florida by allowing this to continue? This is why we should support this bill and vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Patty Sullivan, you're up, and January Littlejohn, you're on deck. Welcome.
Thank you, Patty Sullivan with Parental Rights Florida. As many have already said, and as the representatives mentioned, the Western European nations are about 10 years ahead of us with these studies. And I've looked at many of these studies, and some of them actually, one of them out of Sweden argues that the medical transition is not the best option, given that medical transition suicide rate is actually 19 times higher than the normal average. Also, WPATH itself is not a medical association. Anyone can be a member of WPATH, and you don't have to be a physician to do so. And they themselves actually say in their writing that they are not a standard of care, that they are guidelines, recommended guidelines. And so I would just ask you to vote and support this. Many researchers have made it clear that this is damaging to children, not only in their bodies, but in many other ways as well. And the final point would just be that puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, the puberty blockers actually cause bone density loss in children if they go through these puberty blockers when they're minors. There are a lot of studies that show the harm that happened to these children by taking these drugs.
Thank you for
very
being
much.
here. January Littlejohn, followed by Aaron DiPietro. Welcome.
Thank you. I am a mom and a licensed mental health counselor in Florida. Our daughter became confused about her sex in 2020 after 3 of her friends claimed transgender identities as well. We did not socially or medically transition her. Instead, we worked with a licensed counselor to help our daughter explore and resolve co-occurring issues, including low self-esteem and anxiety. We followed the path of watchful waiting, and our daughter has desisted. When a child is in distress or ill for any reason, we look to doctors and we trust them to give us all treatment options available. I have spoken to many parents in Florida, and that is not what is occurring. They are not being told about watchful waiting, and that the majority of these children will resolve their distress without intervention. What parents are being told by doctors, oftentimes in front of the child, is that affirmation and medicalization is their only treatment option to avoid the impending suicide of their child. Suicide is told to parents as if it is a guaranteed outcome versus a risk factor. And as a mental health provider, I can tell you there are ethical ways of treating suicidal ideation.
Ms. Littlejohn, I've kept everybody else within the time. Please
Yes, sir.
Conclude.
Making irreversible changes to children's bodies before they can consent is not one of them. I support this bill.
Thank you for being here. Mr. DiPietro, and followed by Ryan Kennedy. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Aaron DiPietro with the Florida Family Policy Council, and we are in strong support of HB 1421 and appreciate the support of the sponsors very much. So this bill helps kids struggling to embrace their biological sex by protecting them from harmful drugs and procedures. We should not be teaching children who are struggling with their identity to despise and hate their own bodies and feel that the only way to be able to love themselves is to do harm to their own physical bodies. Giving children puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and transgender surgeries violates the first duty of medicine, to do no harm. A child who identifies as the opposite sex deserves compassionate mental health care. They should never be chemically and surgically castrated or sterilized. The pharmaceutical industry is pushing these harmful experimental treatments on children to line their own pockets. The transgender surgery market is expected to reach nearly $1 billion by 2024. We must protect children and parents from being pressured by ideologically and financially motivated gender clinics into agreeing to these harmful experimental treatments.
Please bring it in together.
The proposal ensures Florida's children received help, not harm, treatment, not transition, and protection, not politics. We encourage you to support the bill.
Thank you for being here. Julie Framingham, followed by Robert Framingham, up from Newport Richey. Are you here? After the Framinghams will be John Labrolia.
Good afternoon.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm the mother of a 28-year-old man who has been identifying as transgender for the past 6 years. While there are undoubtedly various contributing factors responsible for the increase in all the young adults who are experiencing this, I ask that this committee support this bill. I can tell you that my own son was diagnosed by a Florida licensed therapist with borderline personality disorder, which was the root cause of his severe depression and anxiety and his hatred for himself. He has not gotten better with hormone treatment. He has resisted therapy because he thinks that the hormones are going to solve his problem. He also wishes to get surgery. And I can just tell you that it's really difficult to see him the way that he is, where he has really kind of wasted 6 years of his life. He dropped out of school because of his depression. He's a very smart young man, and he's really harmed his future by what he's doing. So thank you very much.
Thank you for being here. Mr. Framingham. And after John Labriola. Welcome.
Mr. Chairman and committee members, I strongly affirm this bill. I am very much in favor of it. My wife just spoke to you about my son, so I am the father of a young man who dresses in female clothes, and he has some serious mental disabilities, and they're not getting better by his transitioning. He's been transitioning for 6 years now. And when he was young, he loathed himself. He allowed his teeth to rot under his braces until every tooth in his mouth has now got a root canal. He has one implanted tooth. I paid $160,000 copay to keep his teeth going so that he would have teeth in his head. Now, clearly there's a disconnect between what he thinks he wants to be and should be and how to live, and what his body, what he sees his body as. But he wants to have surgery to correct that disconnect. And I really think that its mental health program would help him a whole lot. And I think that this bill will, by accenting mental health, will do wonders. It will save children, and I
Thank you.
think that one thing should be,
We've got your time.
all right,
Time's up.
thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming from Newport Richey. Thank you. Anthony, I'm sorry, John Labriola.
Good afternoon, committee members. The alarming rise in the sexual mutilation and chemical castration of minors is easily the most horrifying consequence of the LGBTQ movement's increasingly aggressive indoctrination and grooming of children, and that's what this is. Treating a mental disorder with surgery is not good science. It is malpractice, and it's an agenda driven by ideology, not science, as has been mentioned many times before. Gender ideologues don't care about children's health, and they're willing to sacrifice them and their health and their lives on the altar of their perverted agenda, while unethical pharmaceutical companies and gender clinics are getting rich off of these horrific treatments. Contrary to what's been said over and over again by the LGBTQ ideologues in this room, passing this bill will reduce the suicide rate and will be an act, a major affirming act of saving people's lives and saving children's lives. So thank you.
Thank you for being here. Anthony Vertigo. I believe that's correct. Welcome, Anthony. After that is Armando Pomar. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Anthony Verdugo, Executive Director, Christian Family Coalition, Florida, and we rise in support of this bill of HB 1421. Look, children are beautiful as they are, and they can have happiness and find happiness in their own body. That's the message that we need to send out. All of you here who are supporting this bill are heroes. Thank you for the work that you do. You're extending mercy through legislation. We know what happens when children are submitted to genital mutilation. Depression, anxiety, and suicide results. Sweden, who has conducted the most thorough study, shows that 20% of these individuals eventually commit suicide. So thank you for what you're doing, for extending mercy and compassion to parents and children all across the state. Thank you, Representative Fine, for presenting this great bill. Please vote yes.
Thank you for being here. Armando Pomar. Welcome, Armando. You're recognized.
Thank you, sir. My support for the bill comes from direct experience. I have been for over 14 years working as a mental health technician at Jackson Memorial Hospital and at South Florida State Hospital. I have been seen with some of these adolescents, not necessarily for an operation, but for their confusion, etc. When they just come out of that, they are suicidal. I have had that at South Florida State Hospital, and I will support this bill 100%.
Thank you, Mr. Pomar. Are there any members of the public who have not already spoken that would like to speak on this bill? Any members of the public who have not already spoken? Seeing none, then members, we are going to move into debate. We are now open for debate on the bill. Who would be first? Representative Anderson, you'll be first. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Chairman, and I say that that's plural for working on this legislation. I am one of the members that sit on Chairman Fine's Healthcare Committee. I know some others here are as well. And I remember a few weeks ago when we had that panel presentation. And I'm reminded of that during this conversation today. And I remember the feelings that we all had on that committee. I don't think there was a dry eye on that committee that day. And I remember leaving that room wondering, what is it that we can do to solve this? And we heard from experts from all over the country on this subject. I believe we actually had some subject matter experts that were from Europe as well. So I can say throughout the world. And I'm thankful that
you gentlemen are working on this and finding a solution to this problem. I know how hard it is to work on this. I know how important it is. And I would challenge any of the members of this committee here that if you're questioning why we need this type of legislation, go back and watch the footage from that panel discussion in that healthcare committee. So I will be up on this bill, and I thank you for bringing this legislation.
All right, Ranking Member Bartleman, you're recognized for debate.
Thank you, Chair. That panel did not include the hundreds and thousands of success stories. That panel did not include people who were happy about their transition. That panel did not include other doctors who would speak to the benefits. Everyone who spoke today was speaking about children. And everyone supports parental rights, but I really feel that we only support those parental rights that align with the philosophy of the majority of this House. There are many parents who want the right to make decisions for their children that they feel are in the best interest of their children. Not in this bill, but in another bill. If you want to talk about doing something less invasive to help your child with their gender dysmorphia, let them try pronouns. We're not even going to allow that in this state. That's not a medical intervention, that's in an education bill. This bill also attacks adults. And that's a big problem I have. Because if this is really a free Florida, when you reach the age of 18, you should be allowed to make medical decisions for yourself. And those decisions should be made holistically, not just about your physical health, but your mental health. And this bill is denying health insurance coverage that is currently in place for these individuals. So now you're taking away an option for someone. And so I do not agree with that at all. And the hardest pill for me to swallow with this bill is the inhumanity of not grandfathering individuals in who have been receiving care for 4 or 5 years. It is inhumane and devastating to do that to somebody. Now, in my Florida, we love everyone. We accept everyone. And as someone who loves someone, loves multiple people who have transitioned and who are currently transitioning, I'm going to leave you with what they told me. I am scared. I am scared. This is an adult. I am scared. This is so harmful to me, and I am incredibly scared about my safety and the safety of my peers. We are vilifying a group of individuals. If this is about kids and the adults in this room think this is the best decision for children, then be transparent and just make this bill about children. But it's not. It's going a step further and infringing on the rights of adult Floridians and their access to care by denying them health insurance coverage. So if the bill was, it's just, if it's about kids, keep it there, but it's not. And mark my words, there'll be more to come. And you're vilifying one group of individuals. They already have the highest suicide rate. And it's hard for them to come up and share their stories, and they do not feel heard. So I am asking you, before we get to the vote on the floor, which is going to pass, to consider the grandfather clause. Please speak to people who are in this, who are dealing with this now, and their families are dealing with it. And please listen to the adults who have success stories and are happy with their lives. And don't take it that extra step. Let those adults live their free lives in the free state of Florida. Thank you.
Representative Hunchowski for debate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's so much to unpack here. Let me start by saying thank you to everybody who came out today to speak, and thank you to all the people who reached out to me privately. We've heard a lot about feelings and opinions on things. I went directly to the bill, to sections of the bill that in my questioning that I have problems with, mainly that section lines 45 through 47 that says procedures or therapies that alter internal or external physical traits. And that was the definition for gender clinical interventions. And that this bill also covers health insurance for adults. So it could include not allowing health insurance to cover a mastectomy for a grown woman, and that is specifically in the amendment. Those are not my feelings. So it's literally something that's very unclear here. External physical traits aren't defined either. So does that mean when a child is in an accident and a limb needs to be removed, that can't be done, that a scar can't be fixed? There are a lot of questions, in my opinion, from a technical perspective in what is written in this bill that I hope will get clarified at some point. My personal concern and feeling with this is that we are so intent on judging a certain group of people that we're not clear and very broad in many of the definitions in here. Additionally, adding the statute of limitations, which right now I believe under medical malpractice in civil action can't exceed a 7-year period. We're now extending it to 30 years here. So that if somebody had a breast augmentation or, as I mentioned earlier, a penile implant, they could now go back and it would be 30 years because those are not clear in the gender clinical intervention definition. We talk about parental rights, we talk about freedom, we talk about respecting veterans, and Wendell, I just want to thank you for your service. My personal concern in a lot of the dialogue that's associated with this is we only care about parental rights when we agree with the choice the parent makes. We only support veterans when we agree with the choices that the veterans make. We only support freedom when we agree with the choices that the people make. And this type of discussion keeps coming up over and over again. I have several friends whose children have transitioned, and they're doing great. They're living successful lives. And they did what was best for them. As a mother, I keep going back to how we're talking about human beings. And I don't know where we end up when we continue to talk about human beings like they're not here, like their experiences don't count and don't matter. When I talk to my kids, I let them know that what their life has been like isn't what everybody's life has been like. And that we all, as citizens, as just decent human beings, have an obligation to not only tell our stories, but to hear other people's stories. And that at least when we are talking about someone else's experience, that we do so with the utmost care, compassion, and respect. Because if we believe in God or someone whoever else, then the very least we can do when discussing matters about human beings is to do so with the utmost respect and compassion. I will be down on this bill today for a lot of reasons, and very specifically for the technical reasons that I believe the language is very general, is not specific enough, is now changing civil statutes of limitations for things like a nose job, that it is denying insurance to things that it wouldn't have before. And I hope that at the very least, as we go forward, that when we are talking about other human beings and their experiences, that we do so with respect and compassion. Thank you.
Representative Black in debate. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, representatives, for bringing this good bill. I want to thank you for your courage and for offering a simple, common sense, and very forward-looking piece of legislation, for recognizing an essential truth, and that is that these children are actually victims, once called patients, because we allowed ideology to masquerade as medicine. Thank you for putting a stop to it. Thanks for making sure that Florida does not have to repeat the tragedies that have been undergone in Europe. I thank you. I look forward to co-sponsoring this legislation. I encourage all of my colleagues to vote yes.
Vice Chair Barrero, you're recognized in debate.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, you've heard in this committee from the other side talk about how somehow if we pass this bill, we are going to kill people. Nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, what this bill actually does, it saves lives. I wonder why the other side hasn't talked about the people that this bill, the gender transition actually kills. In fact, you've heard the term dead naming, because that is exactly what happens when someone transitions to another gender. That child, that son, that daughter, that brother, that sister that you once knew is no more. That person no longer exists. He changes his gender and is no more. This bill, what it actually does is it saves lives. It saves them. It doesn't kill them. And it recognizes who they are in the eyes of God. Members, I encourage all of you to support this very good bill and to save lives.
Representative Rudman in debate. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Fine, Dr. Masulo, I just wanted to lend my voice in support of your bill. I also wanted to dispel a few rumors here today. Right? We've heard that some of us must feel like these lives don't matter, or that somehow we don't hear them, or even worse, that we don't care. Well, let me tell you, as a family doctor, I have at least 3 patients that I'm aware of who we currently see for gender dysphoria. Now, these patients know when they make the appointment, they know when they see me, that I am not going to prescribe off-label hormones for their usage. They know they're not getting testosterone. They're not getting estrogen from me. They know they are not getting a referral to a surgeon. What they do get from me, they get my most valuable commodity. They get my time. We sit and we talk about the issues they're struggling with. We'll talk as long as it takes, and my staff will be the first to tell you that. So this argument that somehow we don't hear them, or we don't want to see them, or we don't even care about them, that is patently untrue. And so I just wanted to let you be aware of that, because we're hearing kind of the other side of the story, and I can tell you from experience that that is not true. We care deeply for these patients. And because I do care deeply for these patients, I'm up on your bill.
Are there other members who would like to debate this bill? Other members like to debate this bill? Representative Skidmore, you're recognized for debate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, it's hard. It's really hard to make these decisions for people when I really think they should be able to make these decisions for themselves. And we philosophically just disagree. I know that Representative Fine and Representative Masulo think they're doing a good thing here. And everyone who votes yes on this bill thinks they're doing a good thing here. And those of us and my colleagues who have spoken before me who oppose this bill, oppose it because we think you're doing a bad thing. We both think we're helping people. We both think we're saving lives. And so who's right and who's wrong? I find it interesting when we think about the panel discussion and that there wasn't a dry eye in the room because one person talked about her detransition. But who was crying for everyone else who came up here today, who begged you to listen to them and hear their story and how they felt saved by their treatment, by their gender-affirming care? So we're picking the winner and we're picking the loser based on who actually emotionally spoke to us or made us cry. And we need to get out of everybody's business. These are health care decisions, just like abortion. These are personal health care decisions. And I don't know why all my conservative friends want to get in everybody's business. I really thought we were about less government, fewer taxes. Apparently, that script is flipped. We want to tell everybody what they can and cannot do, and who they can and cannot love, and how to plan for families, and what books to read, and what classes to take, and so many things where government doesn't belong. This is a very personal decision. We want to empower families. Let's empower families. Let's let them make the best decisions for their children with their doctors who do this work. Instead, we're going to criminalize physicians, which it shocks me that physicians are supporting. We're going to criminalize doctors for doing the care that they've been trained to give. These are decisions that government doesn't belong in. I'm not changing anybody's mind. I understand that. But I want you to think about why Chloe made you cry, but Wendell didn't. And look inside your heart and figure out why that is.
Any further member wish to debate? Any further member wish to debate?
Yeah.
You're welcome to debate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wasn't going to debate, but after hearing both sides, I feel like I just need to say something. As a parent, a mother of 2 daughters that never came to me and wanted a sex change. Their friends never wanted a sex change. I've never have lived in that world of sex changes. But I do sympathize with the ones that do want it. However, you should not be making a decision for your child under the age of 18 to change them. And I applaud both chairs here for the guts to do this. 3 years ago, I was sitting, actually it was over in the Senate,
And we listened to people that paraded their children up in front of us, an 8-year-old child, that they mutilated him. It was a little boy, changed him into a little girl. And he wished that he could be a boy again. There was a woman that her father had 3 boys, and I'm sorry, 3 daughters, and she was a 4th daughter. And he started giving her male hormones when she was 6 months old and changed her into a man. She did not want that. Now she had hair on her chest, hair on her face. She was changed, and she said she'd like to be a woman again. But her life has been destroyed. If somebody wants to change their sex, let them do it when they're 18 years old, but don't do it on the backs of the taxpayers. I don't feel like I should pay for anybody to have a sex change, period. But we are sympathetic, and for the other side to sit here and call us, we have no heart for these people. We do have hearts. But a colleague told me earlier, said, we're not trying to hurt them, we're trying to help them. So I thank you for allowing me to speak. I hope this bill passes. Thank you again to the sponsors. And I thank you for your courage, because this should have been done 3 years ago, and we're just now doing it. Thank you.
Any further members wish to debate? Seeing no further debate, members, you're welcome to close on your bill.
I'll start.
You're recognized, Representative Masulo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, you have a very difficult job, particularly when we have issues like this that are hard. They bring out a lot of emotions. And we're just people, we're human beings. And those emotions often lead us sometimes to extremes, to thinking about bullying and falsehoods and trying to get to a point where really we're trying to make a subject into something that makes us feel better. But our primary role as legislators, as lawmakers of Florida or any state, is to protect our citizens. And no matter what opinions we have to work hard to strive to get to the truth. And I want to just leave you with 3 truths. Number 1, since I started walking these halls in 2016, by the grace of the individuals that felt to put their trust in me to come up here and help make laws and represent them, the number of individual minors with gender dysphoria has tripled. Tripled. We don't see that in just about any other field of medicine regarding pathology. These individuals, as you've heard from testimony, have comorbidities, psychological issues, issues with their experiences and their environment that we need to take into consideration. That's one truth. The second truth is there's no such thing as someone being able to change their sex. They may be able to change the way their body works, their physiology. They may be able to change their appearance, but they are born either one sex or another, or some individuals are born intersex that have a chromosomal or other type of genetic anomaly. This bill doesn't deal with those individuals. It doesn't deal with the individuals that Representative Tank basically explained. This deals with individuals that have a sense that they don't belong to the sex that they actually were born to have. And we do vary in our basic psychology oftentimes, and Representative Skidmore, I agree with you. Sometimes we have different opinions on what's right and what's wrong. That's what makes our government so collaborative. That's what makes us get to decisions that actually make sense. But I have to disagree with you because there are truths. And in medical care, we are to do no harm. And the third truth I want to leave you all with are these procedures, these treatments do much more harm than good. And for us to continue those would be disgraceful. As a state and as a person in the medical profession, I would not be able to live with myself and allow those to continue to occur. Chair Fine.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Masula. It's an honor to work with you on this bill. Ranking Member Skidmore said that we can't change minds, and maybe we can't, but I can assure you of this. God blessed me with the ability to talk, and I'll never stop using it to try. Representative Honchovsky, you pointed out lines 45 to 47 of the bill, and you said you worried about things like breast surgeries for adults and things like that. I just want to remind people, you have to read the whole section, and if you go through 48 to 53, it does make it clear this is about sex reassignment and puberty blocking. That said, we will make sure the concern that you have is addressed, because that's certainly not our intent. Representative Bartleman, this bill does not affect an adult's ability to make the decision that they want to make. We're not doing that. They can do it. What it says is that a 13-year-old or a 14-year-old or a 16-year-old should be an adult before they make those decisions. We are not, yes, we're saying that other people don't have to pay for it, which I think is a pretty reasonable statement to make, but we're not restricting their ability to do whatever they want to their bodies as an adult. I don't think the folks who speak in opposition to this bill are villains. I think they're victims. And I think what we've heard in this debate and what we will continue here is the weaponization of two things. The first weaponization is of fake science. We heard this with COVID, right? The science is established. Now, I believed in the vaccine, got them all. COVID almost killed me. But we were told the science said, if you get the vaccine, you won't catch it. Remember? Wasn't true. It did keep you from dying, but they said you wouldn't catch it, and that was not true. They said the science establishes we should keep all the schools closed. Children are going to, lives will be changed forever because they were kept out of school for so long. And in this instance, we get told the science is established because there's some group, and it's been mentioned, called WPATH, that's gotten all these groups to agree. Well, I want you to know what they agree. You were probably all horrified when Representative Bell talked about a child being given these things when they were 6 years old or 3 years old or 6 months old. I bet all of you thought no one would ever do that. I bet the people who opposed this bill said, that's insane. Well, this so-called scientific group, they made a choice in their last set of recommendations. They deleted the minimum age recommendations for all of it. They're not even willing to say this shouldn't happen to a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old. The weaponization of science. The science is not in agreement on this. We talked about Finland. We talked about Sweden. We talked about the UK. It is not established. But I think there's also a weaponization of another word, a weaponization of the word care. It is not health care to cut someone's body parts off. That is not care. And it is not care to give someone drugs to stop the natural occurring process of puberty, which we now know from the studies have effect on their bone density and, think about it, their brains that are developing. That is what the science shows. This is not care. They are not villains. They are victims. But we also know that most of the people who this happens to have comorbidities. Chloe Cole, and there are many like this, she had autism, but they didn't deal with that. They told her parents, you can have a dead daughter or a live boy. You know who loses in this bill? Dr. Titus Delitis, who's figured out a way in her plastic surgery business. See, most plastic surgeries in her business, you do have to pay for out of pocket. And I had a plastic surgeon come to me and say, why do people like this? They said, because they figured out a way to get into the Holy Grail, insurance. Someone else pays. You know who else loses? Somebody that I hear my colleagues often
often have issues with. Big Pharma, $12,000 a year to help with this. They are not villains, they are victims. I know a thing or two about being bullied. I'm not going to talk about it today, but we do this bill to protect children. We do this bill to protect a girl who, when she was 13 years old, think about what you wanted when you were 13 years old, and who doctors, by the way, what is generally considered one of the better hospitals in this country, told her parents, dead daughter, live boy. They put her on these drugs at 13, and at 16, they cut her breasts off. And we heard her here. But her story's not even the worst. Yesterday, I read about Layla Jane. They put her on these drugs at 11 years old. They cut her breasts off at 13. This is not care. This is an abomination. You have the chance today to make sure this doesn't happen in Florida. With that, I ask for your favorable support.
Representative Fine and Masulu having closed on House Bill 1421. Sabrina, please call the roll.
Representatives Abbott,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Bartleman,
No.
Bell,
Yes.
Black,
Yes.
Barrero,
Yes.
Cheney, Franklin,
No.
Humchowski,
No.
Persons Mullica,
Yes.
Rudman,
Yes.
Salzman,
Yes.
Skidmore,
No.
Snyder,
Yes.
Tant,
No.
Trabuzzi,
Yes.
Chair Clemens,
Yes.
12 yeas and 5 nays.
Members, by your vote, please show this
12 yeas and 5 nays.
Members, by 12 yeas, 5 yeas, please show that HB 1067 passes.
Thank you.
Next up today, I made a mistake. That wasn't HB 1067, but we're going to listen to that bill now. HB 1067, Autonomous Practice by an Advanced Practice Registered Nurse. Chair Gia Lombardo. Welcome, sir. You're welcome to explain your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, Ranking Member, members. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to point out, this is relatively a short bill. So I'm going to point out some facts, all right? So number one, this bill does not expand the scope of practice. An APRN with this bill will still be practicing what they've gone to school for and what they're allowed. This does not, they cannot do brain surgery. Believe it or not, I've heard that once, right? They're not going to be able to do brain surgery, all right? Second, currently, and we'll talk about a CRNA, so who provides anesthesia. So a CRNA at a surgery center. So if they're at a surgery center that they're working with an orthopedic surgeon, they will be able to do no different. They are still allowed to provide anesthesia to that patient without an anesthesiologist. That does not change. What this changes, it's the paper protocol that gives the authorization. That's what this bill does. That orthopedic surgeon, who probably doesn't know a whole lot about anesthesia, is the signatory. And you are actually paying twice for anesthesia, which is arguably the second highest cost when getting surgery. Now, what this bill does do, it does allow APRNs to practice autonomously. Right? This is not anything new. 43 other states this bill is modeled off of. 43. And so right now, so that is the bill. Yeah, that's the bill.
Right. You heard it. Members, that is the bill. Members, questions of the bill. Members, questions of the bill. Chair Gia Lombardo. Seeing no questions, public testimony, and we have a few. Christopher Newland, if you would come up.
Thank you, Mr.
You've got
Chairman.
two here. You've got two here. Did you mean to fill out two?
On behalf of two clients, both of whom oppose the bill.
You get paid twice for this? I'm just
Ask
kidding.
them.
You're welcome
On
to
behalf of both
speak.
Plastic surgeons and internal medicine, we oppose the bill. The clinical training, as you've all been told, we've been in your offices the last few days, on both sides of this admittedly. The clinical training is not comparable between an APRN and a physician. But under this bill, the clinical independence would be absolutely identical. In short, and I'm not going to go through all of it, APRNs are a vital part of the healthcare team. We acknowledge that. They are good practitioners. But patients expect, and more importantly, they deserve a physician to be part of that healthcare team. And that would not be mandatory if this bill were to pass. For that reason, we oppose this bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Whatever he said times two. Brent Sell, Florida Society of Anesthesiologists, are you here? All right, waive in opposition. Jeffrey Scott, FMA. All right, FMA waives in opposition. Sierra Bush Rester, are you here? Sierra, are you here? Sierra is an opponent of the bill. Are there any members of the public that hasn't filled out a public form? Anybody wants to talk on this bill? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Anybody else? Speak up. Hold on a minute. Come on up. We didn't get your card. Sorry. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Now we can hear you through the microphone.
Great. Thank you so much. Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair Clemens, Representative Gianlombardo, and committee members for hearing this bill today. My name is Michelle Canali, and I am the president of the Florida Association of Nurse Anesthesiology. I have a Doctor of Nursing practice degree, and I've been certified registered nurse anesthetist for 20 years. I'm here today to speak in support of House Bill 1067. First and most importantly, this is not a scope of practice bill. This bill merely allows for specialty nurses to practice without a written physician protocol. This bill does not allow advanced practice nurses to perform any additional procedures or skills that they are not already certified and licensed to perform today. This bill also grants no additional prescribing authority for specialty nurses than they already have today. CRNAs, for example, already have the same scope as their physician anesthesiologist colleagues. CRNAs are one of two independently trained and board certified anesthesia providers alongside physician anesthesiologists. Nurse anesthesiology graduate students have a Bachelor's of Science in Nursing degree and an average of 4.5 years of critical care or ICU experience prior to being admitted to a 3-year doctoral degree program, which includes a full-time anesthesiology residency with the same scope of training in anesthesia services as a physician anesthesiologist. By the time CRNAs become board certified, they have more than 9,000 clinical hours. Florida needs to increase access to care for our community, and CRNAs stand ready to increase access to anesthesia care by up to 20%. Since 3 years ago, when the Federal Healthcare Agency waived physician supervision for specialty nurses in order to increase access to care, there have been no reported adverse outcomes across the U.S. Because of Florida's restrictive statutes, specifically requiring written protocols for specialty nurses, CRNAs in Florida were still required to obtain a written protocol. It is important to note that the physicians who provide these written protocols for CRNAs most often have no training in anesthesia, and they are not actually supervising the anesthesia services that CRNAs provide. In no state in the United States, including Florida, are CRNAs required to be supervised by a physician anesthesiologist. There are 43 states that have removed physician supervision from their state statutes. Because Florida remains one of the states that doesn't allow for autonomous CRNA practice, we lose 1/3 of Florida's graduating CRNAs every year to other states, specifically because the graduates can practice autonomously in those states.
Can you bring us into a landing?
Sure. CRNAs will continue to work with surgeons for every procedure as they have always done, and by allowing all independently trained anesthesia providers to focus on direct patient care, we are giving the facilities greater choice in anesthesia practice models and keeping the doors of struggling hospitals open. Please support House Bill 1067. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Allison Dudley. Allison Dudley waves in opposition. Is there any other members of the public that would like to speak? Did you fill out a card? Okay. What's your name? Yeah, we didn't read the waves in either way. So, no, Tony, thank you. And you're waving in opposition. Tony Large, waving in opposition. Anyone else, if you filled out a card and you were waving, it is in the record. Any other member would like to speak? Seeing no members like to speak, we'll move into debate. Members, this is debate on HB 1067. Representative Trabolsi, you've been quiet all day and you're welcome to debate.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Representative Gio Lombardo, for bringing this bill forward. This didn't really become a controversial bill until yesterday, and my phones rang off the hooks, my texts went up in smoke, and my office was filled. And wasn't sure where we were going to go with this today, but if anybody, says anything about me, it's probably that I give you too much information. So I'm going to do that again today. A few months ago, almost 8 months ago, I went to the dermatologist with an issue. I was seen by a nurse practitioner, not a doctor. Although the doctor is who I write my check to. They referred me, told me to go to my primary doctor that I could not, they could not figure out what was going on with me. So I went to my primary physician who was out of town for 4 months, and I saw a nurse practitioner for 4 months. Lots of tests, lots of blood work, lots of visits. Only seen by a nurse practitioner. Still wrote a check to the doctor. They sent me to a specialist. I was diagnosed with lupus this year, and I was diagnosed by a nurse practitioner. Never seen the doctor. The only time I saw a doctor was when that nurse practitioner said, you might want to go to Mayo Clinic and see a doctor for this. And I appreciate that. So in the course of 8 months, I've been to the doctor a lot, but I've never seen a doctor. But I'll tell you what, I've gotten great care from nurse practitioners, and I support your bill.
Other members, Representative Rudman, you're recognized to debate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative, for having our discussions this last day or two. And as we noted, my constituents back home do have some serious concerns about this bill, and specifically, it's lines 40 to 42, the parts that deal with autonomy. My constituents, from what they are telling me, they're afraid that they might end up in a situation where, let's say, a patient goes to an oncology clinic just to discover that there's no medical graduate anywhere in the building. So I have to be sensitive to that. But make no mistake, nurse practitioners are a vital part of healthcare delivery in our state. And I should know, I employ a nurse practitioner at my clinic who does an excellent job. So it's really important to me that we listen to the concerns of my constituents, but I also want to listen to the concerns of the nurse practitioners and the nurses in Florida, and I respect their service. Again, we can have grave concerns about the current language, and if this were a floor vote, I would probably have to vote against. But I also believe in the process. I want this bill to have a chance to go through the process, and because of that, I'll be voting up. I'm encouraged by the fact that in the last 24 hours, I've had more people visit my office than in the previous month. And we're talking about people who normally don't talk to doctors. We're talking about PAs. We're talking about nurses, nurse practitioners. So I'm very encouraged by that. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't bite. My dog does, but I don't. So I would encourage you. My door is always open. And Rep. Gianlombardo, I appreciate you for also practicing an open door policy. I pledge to work with you on this bill to address the valid concerns of Florida physicians, and I thank you.
Representative Persons Malika, you're recognized for debate. After that, Representative Abbott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative members, I echo the good doctor's comments from a moment ago. This is not an issue that just came on my radar, though, in the last 24 hours, but I've heard from constituents since the bill is filed that they have great concerns with the significant leap that this bill takes over the existing law in this space. I'll be up on this bill today, and I'll be brief. I also believe in the process and look forward to hearing additional information and continuing to have these conversations. But I do believe this is a big leap. It's significant, and we do need to talk in more depth about this issue. Thank you.
Representative Abbott in debate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative, for the bill. More importantly, thank you for the wonderful debate yesterday evening on the phone and this morning at breakfast. And it was wonderful.
Good breakfast.
It was spirited and wonderful. And for that, I greatly appreciate that. And I also will echo what the doctor said. I work with ARMPs every day, and they're fantastic, and their knowledge is great. There are parts of the bill, of course, that I have some issues with, and how broad it can get. But your openness and willingness to work and discuss that through last night and even today, and to continue that conversation, I'll be up today. And like they also said, I want it to go through the process, and I want to work step in step with you and see if we can't narrow some of that down so that we take some of those concerns away. I do love the spirit of the bill also, in the fact that we are trying to decrease healthcare costs. I am a huge proponent of decreasing healthcare costs, but I also want to make sure that we're protecting the healthcare outcomes. I'll be up today, and again, thank you for your willingness and openness to work with us on this.
Representative Black in debate. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Representative, for the bill. I'll be up today as well, but I'll trust the process going forward. I have strong misgivings that are structural in the bill, and so I look forward to the process, hopefully working those out. Like Representative Abbott, I like the spirit in which the bill is offered, but I have grave concerns about taking physicians out of the chain of command. And so I'll be up on it today, looking forward to hopefully major changes that we would be able to support in the future. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Franklin in debate.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thanks again for spurring this conversation around this issue. I mean, I truly do believe that nurses should have the ability to practice at the top of their license, but just like some other colleagues echoed, I just have a few concerns concerns of the wide expansion when it comes to what this bill outlines. Even in some conversations, there were some things that came up that were a little concerning to me. You know, obviously, I don't believe that it should be a dentist that's overseeing an anesthesiologist nurse. It would make more sense it would be an anesthesiologist, right? And so I'm not sure where in that process as a legislature we might have gotten that a little bit wrong. But within that, I do support access to care. But just the way this bill is written out, I haven't had enough time to really dig deep into the challenges that I have with it, not being an expert within this space of specialty. So unfortunately, today I won't be able to be up on the bill, but I would like to work with you as we try to move in a direction to ensure that nurses can practice at the top of their license, but we're not de-incentivizing collaboration. We all know that delivering healthcare in the optimal manner requires collaboration between all healthcare providers. And one concern that I do have is de-incentivizing that in a space where we do have a scenario that a colleague mentioned where someone might come to a cancer center. And within that center, I'm not saying that nurses and nurse practitioners don't have the ability to give great care, but whenever we don't have a member of the team, a part of that process, when I do work in the hospital, oftentimes we can fill that void and have a challenge with delivering optimal care. But thanks so much for bringing this bill into discussion. And I look forward to working with you in the future.
Other debate? Seeing no other debate, Representative Jim Lombardo, you're welcome to close on your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for the debate and the breakfast debate that we had. Food was good, so I appreciate it. Yeah, this has been, as Rep. Trabolsi said, that this has been a kind of a heated back and forth. And I want to thank all the folks that came up here and talked. And kind of, I hope you got a better picture of what an APRN does, because quite honestly, I didn't until I started running this bill. And I will tell you that, much like Representative Trabolsi, I never see my doctor, right? Access to care sucks. I'll be 100% honest with you. Even going to see any specialty doctors, I don't see a doctor. I see a nurse practitioner or a PA. They're already doing this. They're already working autonomously. So I think that if we look at this bill and what are we trying to achieve, right? Everybody's like, what is the goal of this bill? What problems? Access, cost. I just got done 2 times, right? 2 times the amount for anesthesia, right? Cost and quality, right? I think quality's there because they're already giving it. They're already giving quality care, right? Cost, we have to address that. And access, there's not much access. Try to make a doctor's appointment. I guarantee you it takes you 90 days to 4 months to try to get an appointment. It's not easy. I have a friend that just got diagnosed with cancer. And if he didn't know somebody pretty high on the chain, he would have never got in. Who knows where that cancer would have been? That's the fact. People die waiting, period. So I appreciate the debate. I've had a lot of people come to me and say, I don't know if I can be there. Listen, I had a sergeant major tell me once, he said, don't ever come to me with the issue first. Come to me with the solution. We're trying to solve access, cost, and quality. Come to me with the solution. I'm trying to. Not a single person has come to me with a solution on this issue. So let's keep working on it. I hope I can get your favorable support, and thank you.
Chairman G. Lombardo, having closed on House Bill 1067, Sabrina, please call the roll.
Representatives Abbott,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Baker,
No.
Bartleman,
No.
Bell, Black,
Yes.
Barrero,
Yes.
Cheney, Franklin,
No.
Humchowski,
No.
Persons Mullica,
Yes.
Rudman,
Yes.
Salzman,
Yes.
Skidmore,
No.
Snyder,
Yes.
Pant,
No.
Trabuzzi,
Yes.
Chair Clemens,
Yes.
10 yeas, 6 nays.
Members, we will show this bill reported favorably. Next up, a gentleman who